Here we are again, people. I hope you can hear me and see me. Please let me know if you can. So let's start off. Tell us where you're from, please. Whack it in the comments. Let's see who we've got in the house and let's see whereabouts you are in the world. Now, before I start, I'm actually going to show you something really, really cool. I'm going to do that in a minute. We've got someone joining us later as well. And we're going to look at some absolutely fantastic photography. And we're going to answer your questions live on air. Plus, I've got some that have been sent in from people around the world who can't be with us tonight. So we've got lots going on tonight. Now, firstly, let me go over and show you this. All right, you ready for this? Let's press play and just watch this. This is just like a little warm-up. Brian Nicholson's here. Hello, Brian. Good that you're in the house. Steve from Lanzarote. Noreen from Hot Wows. I know the feeling. Absolutely boiling hot here in Essex. Laurie from Canada. Right. Did you see that little film? Let me show you something else. Let me show you something else. That is the photo that was taken before that film was taken. All right. And let me show you some more stuff. There's another photo. There's another photo. There's another photo. And if you haven't guessed it, these are macro photos, right? I was in Leeds this morning, and for for the past week, I've been working with this photographer called Oliver Wright, who is, there's his name there, Oliver Wright Photography. He's so good at what he does, I cannot tell you, right? He's a macro photographer, and guess what? We are making a macro photography course for you guys. These pictures were taken for the course, so we filmed him take these pictures. He's going to teach you every trick in the book to get shots like this. All right, that's coming soon. Watch this space, and as a little kind of test, let me know what you think in the comments, right? Because I'm just putting it out there because I want to get a little bit of feedback from you guys. We're doing a macro course with probably one of the, well, which I think one of the best macro photographers, certainly in this country, and possibly all over the world. And we're going to bring his skills to you guys, right? That is what I just wanted to warm you up with that, all right? Let me know what you think, please. Let's come back to me. Few other house stuff. Look what I'm drinking tonight. It's called Stormtrooper Pale Ale, Galactic Pale Ale, right? My friend Reese bought it for me, and it's actually quite nice. It's not just a gimmick. It says taste the galaxy. I am actually tasting the galaxy tonight. So there you go. Cheers. The next thing is albums. We forgot to do them last week, so I've left the same one up there. Can you guess this album here? And that's another thing. Forgot to do it last week. And one last thing before we get cracking. You have, please, got to do this. Stop what you're doing. If you're typing in, stop. Press the like button, all right? Share it. If you're on Facebook, this is going out to YouTube and Facebook simultaneously. If you're on Facebook, whack that share button. Share it with your friends, all right? Let's get this thing going. Really, really need your help. I can't tell you how helpful it is. Just hit that like button. Stop doing anything. Hit that like button. Then you can have another drop of your beer. Right. Now let's go back to some comments here. It's ITV Queen. It's Queen. Yeah, yes, up the top. Up the top is Queen. I want to know if anyone can guess this one here. All right. I want to know if anyone can guess this one here. Right. Without further ado, we need to introduce our guest for the night. And it is Tony James. Tony James is a member of TSOP, is a fantastic photographer. We're going to look at some of his work, and I'm going to bring him in right now. And here he is. Hello, Tony. How are you?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, good to be here. Looking forward to it.
Yeah,
we've got
thanks
some
for
good
joining
questions later on.
Yeah. So for everyone out there, you're going to throw some questions out to us. Firstly, we're going to look at Brian's work, and he's going to tell us a bit about himself, but get some questions ready for us. And Brian, and Tony, do you know what? Yeah, do you know why? Because Brian, he's here. Brian's here, and he was with us last month, wasn't he? Tony, so tell us briefly about yourself, Tony, and then we will look at some of your work.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Tony. As Mark said, I've never been called Brian before. Lots of other things, but never Brian. I live in Hitchin, Hertfordshire, England. Originally, I'm from Cornwall, the sunny southwest, but I've lived in Hertfordshire most of my life, actually. I'm retired from my main job at the moment, although I do, just for enjoyment's sake, teach photography at an adult education centre. Not for the money, but because I love sharing photography with other people. So that's what I do in my spare time.
Yeah, fantastic. We're just looking at Tony's Instagram feed here. So please go over and give him some love if you are on Instagram. Go and follow him. His handle is along the bottom of the screen right now. And there's some really fantastic photographs on here, Tony. Thanks, I've had a look through, obviously, and there's some lovely stuff. A real good mixture as well. Looks like you turn your hand to a lot of different genres there.
Yes, I wouldn't say that I have one particular genre, although I do like portrait work in various
that's your
forms.
favourite, is it?
I think so. Not just studio, but a little bit on the street as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
We are. I'm just seeing if anyone's got the. No one's got that album yet, have they? No, they're not. Okay, we'll have to come back to that a bit later on. Right, let's have a look, Brian, at some of your work. Right, I'm just going to get it up on the screen. Let's come over to the screen share here. So I've asked Brian to choose.
Or Tony again.
Oh my God, sorry, Tony. I've asked Tony to choose 3 of his. Well, it's hard to choose 3 of your best. I just said choose 3 pictures to talk about. So yeah, but so that's it really. So let's start off with this one, please, if you don't mind.
I did find it hard to choose 3, Mark, as you know, but I've chosen perhaps some to give a bit of a range, and perhaps to give people some notion that you might have to get up early in the morning or stay up late at night. This I just looked on the metadata, and this was 7 a.m. in the morning in Venice. But of course, I had to be there before that to set up the camera and get into a position where the sun would just appear between those 2 domes. So
did you use an app or something like that to did you know that the sun was going to appear in that exact spot? Right.
I was had some information from someone who knew that it was likely.
Yeah, got you. Yeah.
I do have the photographer's ephemeris, but it was just a bit of luck, really, to get there in the right place and wait for the right time. Yeah. So I had my camera on a tripod, all ready to go, and just about 7 in the morning, bang, there came the sun with that lovely starburst. People probably know that you need fairly narrow aperture to get the starburst, but also the sun was very, very bright. So having done the TSOP Photoshop course, I knew about painting in the burnt out sun afterwards. So I've done that. And if you haven't done the Photoshop course yet, I'm not being paid to say this, but it's really worthwhile to do. And I managed to get some yellow in the sun instead of just a white splodge there.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Thanks for plugging the course. I like that. I'm zooming in now. Yeah, and you can't help when you shoot into the sun. It blows out. It doesn't matter what camera you've got. It doesn't matter who you are. You're going to get a white spot. And then there is some simple Photoshop techniques where you paint the same color over the top. You use blend modes, and it sticks to the light, and then it takes the burnt area out, and it works. And you have to do it, especially if this is the type of shot you want to go for. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all, to be honest.
So that was February in Venice. I was there for the carnival. There's some carnival shots on the Instagram, but not talking about them tonight. I also planned out a few ugly cranes, I think, or possibly an ugly crane and a few television aerials from the skyline.
I see, cleaned it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Nice one. Let's go on to the next one then. And that's this one here.
Okay, this is another relatively early in the morning shot. It's about 9 in the morning, which isn't that early, but possibly the trick with this one is to be able to get the weather right. So knowing it was going to be a misty morning, a few meteorological clues, and perhaps the weather forecast, the Met Office one, usually tells you if it's going to be misty. So this is about 4 or 5 miles from where I live. And I'd been to look at the site. This is called Norton Common in a town called Letchworth. And I knew there was an avenue of trees there. And I'd taken the avenue before in autumn time, etc. But I rather fancied a monochrome shot. This is actually converted to black and white, although there's very little colour in the image at all.
In the first place, yeah. It's a lovely atmospheric shot, and the people give it scale, doesn't it? It gives it
Yeah.
life. These people in the foreground here gives it life.
Couldn't quite get the odd number. There's 2 people and a dog. I hope that counts for camera club members who will have had drilled into them that there must be an odd number of people in an image.
Oh, really? Oh, well, some of the
Yeah.
best pictures I've seen have had you have an even number of images if you want someone to stare at a picture. But anyway, I've got a question that's come through, Tony, for you already. So someone's already kicking us off. Oh, I'll just give the game away there. We'll come back to that one in a minute. We'll come back to that one in a minute.
Right.
This one is from Mark Fulbrook.
Yeah.
Fulbrook. And he this was when this picture was up. He said, "Very nice, Tony. Did you use any filters for this shot?"
No, not for this one. I did have some ND filters with me, actually, but I didn't use it for this one at all. This is straight out of the camera. It's f11, 100th of a second, ISO 100.
Yeah, so straight shot. Love it. Did you bracket it at all, or did you just take the picture?
I did bracket it. Yeah, and the camera was on a tripod, although at 100th of a second I could have handheld it, but I had the tripod with me. I carried it all the way to Venice. I might as well use it.
Yes, right. I see. So I hope that's answered your question, Mark. We are now going to go on to the one that I just did it a minute ago. Okay, let's talk about this one, Tony, if you don't mind.
Yes, by coincidence, Mark's advertised the upcoming macro course. Pure chance, I have to say.
It was actually.
Chose a macro shot, but this was taken last year, actually on the 16th of July, so pretty much a year ago today. And at this time of the year, these chalk hill blue butterflies are around in abundance on, guess what, the chalk hills. And I actually live on top of the Chilterns, so just along the road from me, I was able to go out, and it was 8 p.m, so about now, a year ago. And at that time of night, the butterflies are usually settling down to roost on various flowers, etc. So if you're lucky, they will be still, and you're able to get some shots without having to be super quick. This isn't a photostat image. This is one image, but I was able to position myself side on to the chalk hill blue butterfly and get most of it in focus. Mark's just blown it up, and I think you'll find it is pretty sharp.
We've just answered Laurel's question there. I just put it
focus stacking.
I'll just put it up there.
I have got into focus stacking more recently with my new camera. Well, actually, on my previous camera manually, and on the new one, which cheats utterly and does it all for me. But this one wasn't stacked. It's f2.8, 100th of a second, ISO 500.
It is crisp. That is as crisp as you like. I mean, that's lovely, isn't it? And what a beautiful animal. You know, what a beautiful insect. I mean, it really is stunning, absolutely stunning. And I've just been working with Oliver. And we took a butterfly shot. Well, he took a butterfly shot in the same, just like what you just said there. 100mm macro lens, one shot, bang. And then there was some focus stacking on other shots, like the really close-up ones. But it's all depends on what you're photographing, isn't it? I suppose.
And I was lucky. This one is a good specimen as well. Unfortunately, so many have ragged wings, and those little filigree white bits on the edge of the wing get a bit ragged. But I must apologise. Sorry, Mark. I was going to say I must apologise if there are any naturalists out there, and that isn't a chalk hill blue. I do stand to be corrected because That's what I think it is, but I'm no expert on.
Right, yeah, well, I can't correct you, so if you say that it is, then I believe you. It's as simple as that.
It was on the
some of
chalk
the-
hills anyway.
Yeah, some of the while we're on macro, let's go, because this, I don't know what this one actually. Do you know what that is? Do you know what that is?
Is it a
Anyone know what
damselfly?
that one is? I think it is,
might
but
be
it's a
damselfly.
brown. I think it's called brown something or another. But I was learning a lot, but then forgetting a lot.
Yeah.
I forgot what species that actually was. But this is what I wanted to share. That is called a shield bug, and it is so tiny. Absolutely, I can't tell you how small it is, and how Oliver saw this is absolutely beyond me. Like, because it's just in the grass. It's it, and you've got to see the video. Like when we publish the video, it's so small and it's right in. And look, we could just see all these little drops of dew, and then it started to wake up, and it started to we think it started to either suck water from the grass there, or it was eating the grass or something. But we got a film of it. It's stunning, and but it's such a skill, macro photography, and I think it's something that you just have to keep doing, don't you? And learning about the animals is just as important, isn't it, as trying to find and photograph them. Oh, there we go. Brown darter. Thank you, Alan. Thank you. It is a brown sun. I'm going to take that because I couldn't remember what it was called. And I think that is what it is. Well done, Alan. Thanks for that. Right. So thank you for showing us your work. Let's come back to full screen here. Now, I always ask people that join us, Tony, your photography journey. All right. It's very interesting for people to know because we've got our members in here tonight and they're all on a journey, and so are you, and you've been on the journey before. And where did it all start? Where did the bug come from?
Yeah, actually, I've looked it out earlier. This is where it started.
Yeah.
This was my mother's camera, and I've done a little bit of research. It's an Agfa. It's an Agfa Isorette, and it was made in 1936/37, and it was her 21st birthday present. But as that wasn't until 1946, just shows, wartime, etc. Second-hand camera, I guess. And I was given use of that when I was aged about 12, and I had a little book that I had to look up to set the aperture and the shutter speed, etc. If it was a sunny day, look at the little sun symbol and set it at f8 and etc. So I started from there. Had an SLR camera for my 18th birthday, and I've done a little conversion of value of money from today, to then, and that was a really generous birthday present, I have to say. My parents did me proud on that as a present. And I used it quite a lot when I was a student, taking pictures of the rugby team and students mucking about, etc., and using the darkroom. Most of my working life, I used a camera to take photos of landforms without any real consideration of any aesthetics of the shot. So if I was going for a U-shaped valley, I wanted to show a classic U so that I could point that to my geography students. And it didn't matter if there was a artistically placed tree or a nice few sheep wandering past. So spent a lot of years taking pictures, but not really considering them as works of art in any way, shape or form. So that's what I did pretty much up until about 12 years ago, really. I bought myself a DSLR after having a point and shoot digital camera. And I think my children bought me a course as a present. and I got to learn how to use the thing.
Yeah.
And
it just stemmed from there.
Stemmed from there, really. Yeah.
And I know you haven't mentioned it yet, but you was a geography teacher for many years as well.
I was. Yeah.
And now you're retired, and now you've got the life of luxury to spend all your retirement on photography lenses and go and take photographs.
Best job in the world. Yeah.
That's right. Right. So the other questions I ask as well is, we've got obviously people that are starting up and learning and this, that, and the other. And they're all here listening. And what struggles do you think faces the beginner, the learning photographer? And, what tips would you give people that have just started to, well, what would you say don't do, and what would you say do when you're learning or when you're starting?
I think I was fortunate, really, that I've had quite a long time to get used to the technical aspects of the camera. And so that wasn't really my struggle. My struggle was the aesthetic one, if you like. But my wife used to help me out quite a lot. She used to say things like, "Oh, there's a good shot over there. How do you consider that?" So it was quite nice to have her next to me. She's not so keen now when I get out the filters and spend, bracketing shots of 5 minutes and so on. But she certainly helped me at the beginning. To try and sort of get to see the image.
Yeah, it's good to have someone with you sometimes when you're out photographing.
Yeah.
Going out with someone else, because they do see, as long as you're with someone who you're friendly with, and they're not going to get the if you both take the same picture, it doesn't matter, does it?
No.
But it is good to have someone with you. It is a double-edged sword, asking your wife or your mum or your kids or whatever, because they're always going to say, "Oh, that's good." They're never going to say. So there's a double-edged sword there. But I do get what you mean. And so, what would you say to people not to do? They're just like common things, like they're learning, and what would you say don't do?
Well, the first thing I'd say is never stop learning.
Yeah.
You just have to. There's always new things.
That's the teacher in you. I wonder if I've got. Hang on a minute. I'm going to get something, because it's the teacher in me. That says.
Absolutely, yeah. Well,
I am still learning, and it's a famous quote from Michelangelo, and apparently he said it in his 80s or whatever it was, and I keep that. It's in my office up the top there. That's where I keep it. And it says, "I am still learning." I think the day that you think you know it all is, you might as well give up, really. And also it would be boring if you know everything. Learning is a great thing to do, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, I went out with Oliver right there. I was learning so much, and it was just so fantastic. And we was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. This is no word of a lie. So you're tired, but then you're out in these fields and the mist is coming up, and you're finding these insects and watching him work, and it was just brilliant to be there. You know what I mean? Sure. But you should always keep learning. That's a good one. I
would say on the same theme, really. Just do training courses. Be prepared to accept constructive criticism, and I'm fortunate, really. I've got a group of friends that will be constructive and might say things like, "I don't think that's your strongest image." They won't say that's rubbish, but something like that is quite a hint. And we try to do that for each other, so a bit of a mutual support group, really.
Yeah. Good. So that's quite then, what would you give? And just to everybody else watching, we're going to answer questions in a minute. So while I just ask Tony something here, because there's a 30-second delay between you writing something and us seeing it. So start putting your questions in to ask us some questions. Start doing it now. So go on, Tony. What would you say for people to do?
Yeah, master the camera controls so that the conscious becomes subconscious, really becomes automatic. So you get to know them. Obviously not all at first. Nothing wrong with auto modes. Get familiar and then gradually build up your confidence.
Are you talking about aperture priority and that kind of mode, or are you talking about the green square?
Well, I moved past the green square on my digital fairly quickly, but quite happy in the semi-auto modes like aperture priority.
I agree. I agree. I mostly use one of them. It's just quicker for you, and that's right.
But now that I've got a mirrorless that gives you a preview of the final image, manual mode is much easier, especially with a histogram in the viewfinder. But the semi-auto mode's really handy, especially, like I was talking about the sunset shot. If you know that needs a narrow aperture, put it in aperture priority, stick it at f16 and see what shutter speed it gives you. If it gives you a reasonable one, bingo, you're away.
Absolutely.
The second point I think I would make is try to develop that photographer's eye, as I called it, about composition. And perhaps the third tip is, I say master, get to know more about post-processing, because there's no way I'm a master of post-processing. And once again, an unsolicited plug that the TSOP Photoshop course is just so good. I was thinking about it as I was mowing the lawn this afternoon and thinking that if you watch a YouTube video about how to, for example, paint in an image over the sun, you've missed so much of the background. It would be like having your first driving lesson and having to do a three-point turn. You don't start driving with a three-point turn. You do the basics. And that's what the TSOP course does.
That's right. That's really that's the teachers in us, isn't it? Like we know that the building blocks are more important really than the top stuff. Sure. If you haven't got that foundation, you can't go nowhere. And YouTube, I, as good as it is good for the things. It doesn't structure anything for you, and you just don't know what you're getting. It's like it's just a free for all, isn't it? But no, thanks. That is great advice. We've got a few questions coming in. I'm going to put one on here by Terry Bromley here. He is on YouTube, and he is saying, I find it quite difficult to get constructive comments from experienced photographers. How did you manage it? I suppose we'll just put it to you, Tony.
Okay. Yeah, actually, I do have an answer for that. I went, my first sort of real introduction, I went on a photography tour to China, or a tour to China with two very good photographers, John Humphrey and Sue Bishop. And they are both brilliant people, and they were very constructive. A few years after that, I joined a camera club, and I've subsequently left the camera club. I made some great friends, but I didn't always find the comments constructive. And I guess I have been, I say selective sounds a bit arrogant. I've been fortunate that I made some really good friends through the camera club who have remained my friends and have helped me with my photography subsequently.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm getting from what you're saying here is you've chosen the people that you respect their opinion from. And that's the important thing to come from what you've just said there, because camera clubs are full of all different types of people, lots of people that have got opinions about that are not based in fact, and because obviously we get loads, and that I hear that from camera clubs so much. I think they're really good. You get a good community. I don't think they're a good place to they have these competitions, and then people believe that if they've not got anywhere in these competitions, that their photos are not that great.
Yeah.
And I've looked at some of these competitions and the winning entries and thought, what the, it's just ridiculous. It's so wishy-washy that you shouldn't take it by heart anyway. Like, it's just, but I think that what the really good thing to take from what you said is get some people around you that you respect their opinion. And then that's all you need to know, really, isn't it? Because if you start listening to every Tom, Dick and Harry, it's not going to...
Yeah, there were some really good photographers at the Camera Club, and people whose work I really, really admire and respect. But,
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to another one. Who was that? So, Terry, I hope that's gave you a little bit of advice. Just let us know if it has in the comments there. Let's go to... It's a bit of a vague question, this one. I'm not quite sure how we'd answer this. Your opinion on ISO settings. I would... Well, go for it.
Yeah, I'm fortunate to have, in recent years, some good cameras that ISO hasn't been a problem at all. Can whack it up. I've taken studio shots quite recently. ISO 800, no problem. ISO 1600, no problem.
No problem. No, that's right.
Go way above that.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think you should be scared to go up high on your ISO. These days, cameras are really good at dealing with them. There is an obvious thing, correlation with sensor size. So if you've got a bigger sensor, it does handle ISO a lot more. But obviously with that comes bigger, heavier kit and generally more expensive kit. But even on, I love this camera. People that watch me, they know that I love my little Olympus here. It's a Micro Four Thirds. If you compare the sensor size of that, if the full frame Canons, what have you got, an R5 or something?
I've got an R5 and an Olympus.
Oh, have you got an Olympus as well? Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah. So that can go in the pocket.
Yeah, you compare the sensor. I don't know, one's that size and one's that size or whatever. But just for the use of it, it's fantastic. And so you have to deal with that with ISO, but I don't think that you should be scared. I mean, we've been working with Andy Rouse, who's a wildlife photographer, and he uses the Olympus system, them cameras there for his wildlife shots, and he whacks his ISO up even on them, to quite high, to be honest with you, 1600 or 800. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was, but so that's our opinion on ISO settings. So I hope that no name is just HFV vid shots. Your name would have been nice if you put your name in there. It's nice to know who we're talking to. Have you seen any there? I'll see if I've got. There's one about poppies. They're underneath. Should we put that one up while we have a look? This is from Barry Raspberry. When I take an image of poppies at this time of the year, the red seems to be overexposed far too easily. Any tips in camera or in post edit? So I'm visioning what's going on here.
Oversaturated red.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Because sometimes, Barry, instantly in my head, I thought exactly what you thought there, Tony. It's probably oversaturated rather than overexposed. Because reds in camera, and it depends on what setting you've got your camera on, it can look overexposed, oversaturated with a bit of sunlight on a poppy. I
guess I would say expose for the red.
Yeah.
And
we're using the histogram.
Yeah,
you could use the histogram. Yeah, you could bracket the shot as well. You could just take it one under. But my guess is that it's the saturation of the shot that's making you think it's overexposed. Put it into Lightroom, bring the saturation down, check your camera profile, make sure it's on standard and not something fancy. And if that don't work, you just get your exposure evaluated, your exposure compensation dial, turn it down by a stop, and I think that will do the trick for you. All right. So I hope that's answered, Barry, your question.
There's one there about portrait photography, balancing the technique
from
and
Laurie.
engaging with, yes.
Okie dokie.
Yeah.
Right. Any tips for portrait photography? I find it hard to balance paying attention to the technical stuff whilst also engaging with the subjects. All right. Go on, Tony.
Okay. So I think that goes back to one of my tips about making the camera controls sort of unconscious, if you like. But to be honest, if you are working with lights in the studio, you are controlling the light, and the camera settings become very straightforward. I mean, off the top of my head, I would say f8 stroke f5.6, 125th of a second. Bingo, you're there with your camera settings, ISO 100 or 200.
Go on. Sorry, carry on.
But the engaging with the model or the subject is skillful and possibly quite difficult if you haven't, like Mark and myself, spent a long time engaging with people in their job for many, many years. So, fortunately, I find it fairly easy to talk to people. Hope that's coming across tonight. But I do totally understand what you mean, and especially if it's a stranger and it's a model, it can be quite difficult to interact at first. But like most people, I think that most subjects respond to a bit of flattery or constructive comments without being gushing and over the top, really.
That's right. Flattery gets you everywhere in life. But when it comes to the settings, if you are in a studio, like Tony says, it is quite easy when you understand about studio lighting. You've got your settings, they're plugged into the camera, you've done your light test, and then the rest is the focusing, getting the focusing right. And then you just talk and engage with the subject. If you're outside, obviously you're not controlling the light. No. But aperture priority, if you're outside and it's light, it's in the daytime and it's light, aperture priority is probably going to be your best friend there, because you could set the aperture to the widest. That's generally what you do when you take portraits. You want a nice soft blurry background, so you'd set it to whatever, f4, and because you're on aperture priority, the camera will do the rest for you. But you're going to have to keep your eye on the shutter speed settings. Don't let it go down below 125th or 250th, really, if you're hand holding and zoomed in and all that kind of stuff. So that's it. So on the Canon or the Olympus, you can actually you can set your minimum shutter speed, and you can set your minimum highest ISO as well. So you can do all of that, so that you have aperture priority. Tell the camera not to go below 1/25th of a second, and then it will raise the ISO if it needs to for you. And like we said earlier, don't worry too much about that, because at least you're going to get the shot. So do you understand what I mean, Tony? You're not really worrying about the settings then, are you? You're just
no, you're concentrating on the Mark, there's quite a nice one from Heather Sheldrick that I'd like to respond to. Subscribing to a multitude of different teachers from all around the world. Well, it could be confusing. Too many cooks.
I'll just read it out, Tony, because it just helps me as well, because I ain't read it yet. And it helps everyone else. Learning is so important, but I found myself subscribing to a multitude of different teachers from all around the world. I was getting overwhelmed and confused, so I stopped them all, apart from TSOP. For me, this is the best course out there. Too many cooks spoil the broth. Yeah, go on, Tony.
Well, I would endorse that. I had a very lovely man who sadly passed away last year, who taught me a great deal. I will give him a name check, Andrew Appleton. I did had some lovely opportunities with Andrew, and taken far too early. And Andrew with his work in the field and TSOP, and I don't do anything else.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, and I tell you, I mean, see, this is going to sound like a sales pitch, but it's not. But I will tell you something that and actually Tony knows because he's been a teacher for so many years, right? Teaching is a skill showing anyone can do, right? It's as simple as that. So anyone can show you stuff, anyone can say this is how you do it, but there is a skill to teaching, and it takes years to learn how to teach. It takes years to learn how to teach. You can't just start a YouTube channel and start teaching, all right? Like, I know you can, you physically can, anyone can, but there's a reason why teachers have to go through lots of different qualifications before they become a teacher, and then they have to get a lot more experience before they come, senior. So, and I think that because we live in this instant fast food type world, I think that's been forgotten. I just think that's been forgotten, except for in the education system, because you still need your degree and you still need your thing. But everywhere else in the world, it's like, I want it now. I want it so quick. I'll learn it off of YouTube, or I'll learn it off of a blog post. So that's something that I just think is really important, and no one ever listens to me because I'm obviously trying to sell you stuff, right? But it's just a fact. Yeah, no, you're not. No, but that's
Yeah.
I think that's a good point, Heather. And yeah, thanks for bringing it up. And just remember that there is showing and there is teaching, and it takes a long time to learn how to teach.
Yeah.
And Tony, being a teacher, I'm sure would agree. Right, where are we going to go now, Doug?
Lorraine Smart.
Give me a minute. I'm going to find it. Lorraine Smart. Oh, it must be up the top. I think I've gone past
It's
it.
gone below Heather. There's a few comments about camera clubs, etc. And then
it's
Lorraine.
below Heather. Oh, yeah. Sorry,
Yes.
I've got it. I got it.
Yeah.
Right. How do you deal with camera snobbery? I had someone, I think that is, someone looked down on me recently as I only have a Canon 400D, and they had a Nikon, and I was well miffed at his displeasure. Okay, we get your point, Lorraine. We get what you're trying to say here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Well, I think they need to do one, if I can use the vernacular as well. I didn't have a 400D. I had a 350D, the forerunner of the 400D, and a really good camera.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's such a thing as a bad camera.
No, there isn't. There's just such thing as a bad photographer.
Yeah.
And I mean, so going back to the macro photographer that Oliver Wright that we've been working with, he's got very expensive equipment, as you would expect, because it's his job, and he works with Canon actually, so he gets a lot of stuff anyway. But we did a shoot on purpose. One of the lessons is called budget macro photography, and we used a Canon 1200D, which is lower than your 400D there. We used the kit lens and some extension tubes, and you want to see the results from that, right? And it's just, that's because it's the knowledge rather than the equipment. So you just deal with it. I'll tell you how you deal with it, Lorraine. You take good pictures with it, with your equipment, and that's how you deal with it. It really
I'm
is
really sure you will.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thanks for that, Lorraine. That's a great question. That is a great question. While you're looking for another one there, Tony, I've got some from people that can't be members that can't be with us tonight. So I'm going to read one out here, and it is from it's from Trisha Young in Tennessee in the USA. I'm trying to get Lightroom Classic set up. I went to import from an SD card to a folder that I made called Trisha's Pics. This is so common, this, what I'm going to read now. I think everyone's probably done this. And they wanted it to go onto an external hard drive, right? But when I chose pictures, they all went onto my computer hard drive, filled up the disk space. I had to recover, reinstall. It took her 4 hours, right? And it all just went wrong. What did you do wrong? The simple answer for that, Trisha, is that Lightroom will only do what you tell it to do. You told Lightroom to put your pictures into the pictures folder. Now, the pictures folder by default is on your hard drive. That's whether you're on a PC or a Mac. They're on your normal computer. So what you had to do on import was on the drop down. You drop down and it will say this is a PC now. It'll say users, and you select your user and whatever. Or it will say external hard drive, like your H drive or your F drive. And I think that's probably where you went wrong. You didn't select the external hard drive before you went to pictures. So it's sort of like at a higher level. So you have your drives and you select your drive first, and then you find the folder within that drive, and you will have your hard drive and whatever other drive you've got plugged in. So I know it sounds quite obvious, but basically you told Lightroom to put your pictures into the hard drive of the computer, and you should have selected the external hard drive. So don't worry, you won't ever do it again. You only make them mistakes once. And we've all done it. We've all done it.
Yeah. And then
you
you have all the deleting the copies and have I deleted this one, or
starting again. I've done it. I still do it now sometimes, and I just remove from the disk and I start again. It's just one of them things. You found anything that you want to?
Sorry, I was listening to your answer.
That's all right.
Someone was asking or said that Penny Wint.
Oh yeah.
I found the TSOP course. I went through the course, learnt so much. I'll let you carry on.
Yeah, but once outside, I lack confidence. So I'm now redoing the course. Does anyone else feel the same? Okay, so firstly, this is a chance for other people to comment and help Penny out, because everyone lacks confidence. This is not just everyone lacks confidence. I'm telling you, it's just something. It's just the human being. Now but once outside I lack confidence, right? So you're worried about people looking over. My light just went off then, don't worry about it. You're worried about people looking at you and going, what's she doing over there with her camera? Look at her. You're worried about looking silly, right? I worry about that as well. But let me tell you something. No one gives a crap. No, they're probably looking over going, oh, she's taking a picture. That's probably all they're thinking, and then walking off into the distance. So you can really overthink things. And I just don't worry about it, really. That's my... It's easy to say don't worry about it, isn't it? It's easy to just say don't worry about it. Go on, Tony, you jump in.
Well, I was just wondering, trying to second guess Penny, really, whether she thought she was mastered something, then got out in the field and thought, oh, I've forgotten what that video said. Well, it's just practice, Penny. Yesterday, I got my PDFs out on color separation that I did in the TSOP retouching course, because I hadn't done color separation for 2 or 3 months, and I've been asleep since then, so I've forgotten it because I'm not all that familiar. It's a new technique for me, so I just had to refresh.
I even had to go back and have a look myself on one of my own, because I've just forgotten the frequency separation. I was doing a portrait and I just forgotten what way the layers went round, so I had to go. But this is what happens. We're only human, aren't we? We've not got like an iMac in our heads. We have to go and look at things. So it's only natural, Penny. And you will build confidence. I tell you, some days, because I like going out and photographing on the street and doing projects, and I like people and stuff like that. And some days you can go out and you can just talk to people all day, and you have such a fantastic day, and you talk and they go, yeah, take me picture. And, you know, and then other days you just can't bring yourself to going up to people for some unknown reason. I don't really know, but it just happens. And then so it happens to me, really, on them days. And I just take pictures of not people, if you know what I mean.
Buildings.
Of buildings, yeah. And I take it's true in my head. So when I'm out trying to take pictures, like whatever, when I was doing the boot sale project or Southend, whatever, I would say to myself, right, just do a few warm-up shots, like like if you was in the gym and you just, you started off with light weights or something like that, and that really does help. Just take pictures of bloody anything, like a wall, and then think, right, how can I make this wall look better? And then just do stuff like that, and then it sort of gets you into the swing of things. It works for me anyway. That's what works for me.
Yeah. HF Vid Shots is Harry, by the way. Harry.
Hello, Harry. Thanks for giving us your name. There's
one from Mick Sullivan. Mark.
Oh yeah, Mick. Yeah. I know, Mick.
Tony and Mark, I have a 150 to 600 telephoto. Is it better to use on my crop sensor, etc.? Can you see that one?
I am going to find it, and there it is. Yes, I know, Mick. How are you? Thanks for joining us. And yep, go ahead. So, hi, Tony and Mark. I have a 150 to 600 telephoto lens. Is it better to use it on my crop sensor camera with a 1.6 crop factor or on my mirrorless full frame camera? Michael from Newcastle upon Tyne. Yes, do you know what? That's actually on this form as well, because he submitted it on the thing. Right, what's it better to use on my crop sensor or my mirrorless full frame? Well, you can't use crops. You can't swap. So you have full frame lenses and you have crop sensor lenses, and on Canon you can put the full frame on the crop sensors. You can't go back the other way round. So I don't know what camera you've got, so I'm not really sure.
But
you could put your full frame on your crop sensor, and then you'd have a more narrower field of view than you would if it was on your full frame. That's right, Tony, innit? Just
yes, but it would appear to give a more magnified image.
That's right, yeah.
Actually, a smaller amount of the image. It's not really a greater scope, but it just appears that way because you're just getting the middle bit.
Yeah, you're getting, that's right.
So it's magnified out a bit more.
Yeah, for argument's sake, you're getting more telephoto. You're getting more zoom if you put it on
that way.
Yeah, on your crop factor camera. There isn't an answer to say if it's better or not, because it just depends on what you're photographing. It's better if you want to get closer to something, because you will get closer to something if you put that lens on the crop factor camera. But then if you're looking for detail and you're up in the ISO, you'd probably want to use your full frame camera anyway.
Yes, and if you use the full frame, you can crop the edges of the image, and that will give you the same degree of magnification as your image taken on the crop sensor camera.
Yeah. There isn't a right answer. There ain't an answer for that, Mick. It's not better. It's just different ways. Let's have a look for our trips abroad. Here we go. You might be able to answer this because you've actually done it. Yeah. This is from Charles Clark. Are trips abroad with photographers worth the while? I'd love to go to places like Jerusalem. Would a local guide be just as good, or do photographers add the experience? All assuming travel is allowed, of course. So trips abroad with photographers. Now, I'm assuming he's just talking about going with his friends, photographers, rather than going on a workshop. Holiday. Yeah, photographic holiday. I'm assuming that's what Charles means, but But anyway, go on. You are. Yeah.
Yes, I have. I mentioned earlier on that was really sort of a light bulb moment to me. Perhaps I should say flash bulb moment to me.
Yeah.
Having the opportunity to go away with two really good photographers, as they weren't guides because the tour company employed local guides, but the photographers were there to help us see a picture and help us with the technical photographic aspects. So
did you go on a photographic holiday then? Was that what it? So, right. So these photographers were professional photographers, and they sold a certain amount of spaces to people and took them. Yeah, I got you right. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Go on, carry on. Sorry.
And that was really helpful because we did think you were talking about being up at 4 with Oliver with the macro. Well, we were doing things like that. I don't necessarily think a local guide, unless that person was a photographer, would do that. They may take you to, shall we say, the Taj Mahal in the middle of the day when there's a couple of million other people there. Yeah. But if you had someone who knew about photography, he or she might take you there at 6 in the morning. You might get the sunrise and only a few photographers around.
Yeah, that's right. So they've got the knowledge of photography and the area that you would assume that they've been to the area before with the photographers, Yeah.
And sometimes they queue things up. Like if you go to China, you're going to get perhaps a cormorant fisherman employed by the tour company posing for you like a model with his cormorant or something like that. So you can get that classic shot.
Are they expensive? I know that they're more expensive than a general holiday, aren't they? I mean,
well, I'm talking quite a while ago now. It's 2011, 10 years ago, that I went to China, but that wasn't really any more expensive. I didn't think it was still in the same ballpark as a normal tour of China.
Tour, yeah.
And we saw all the classic landmarks, the pandas, the Great Wall, terracotta warriors, etc. So it was a bit of both, but having the photographers was superb.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's answered Charles's question. I think it's a good answer. And there's a couple of questions here. We're probably going to answer one or two more. So get them in. How do you get over the fear of street? We've kind of just touched on that. I'm fine on empty streets, but when there are full of people, I freeze, pack up my equipment and leave. No fear of negative response. Anyone else feel the same? Yeah, we all feel the same.
But on the other side of that, you touched on it earlier on, Mark. Sometimes people come up to you and say, "Oh, what are you doing? Oh, that's a big lens you've got on your camera," or that's a big camera you've got, and they engage with you, and you say, "Oh, can I take your picture?" And
it helps if you like to have a chat. I think as well. I think it helps if you like to have a chat walking around the street and chatting to people. There's still always a fear, really. No one goes out and with full confidence. No. But yeah. Now let's answer one more, shall we? Let's answer one more. So there's one here about a teleconverter. Do you know about teleconverters? Yeah. Okay, then let's go for that one.
Yeah. Okay.
It's from Jennifer Box here. I just bought the Lumix G9. Not sure about teleconverter 1/2 or 2 or 1/4. Which is best? Also, extension tubes. Could they help and be more versatile? Do you know anything about them, Tony?
I don't know about the Lumix ones, but I have the Canon 1.4 and 2 times converter that I bought for Safari to go with my 70 to 200 lens. Was the longest lens I had at the time. I used the 2 times teleconverter. Fine. You lose a few stops, so that's a f2.8 lens, it was only working at 5.6 aperture, but plenty of light in Africa in the middle of the day, so not a problem.
And they do help. I think that they're a really cost-effective way to increase your focal length. To be
There's
honest,
no way I could have afforded a 400mm lens, for example.
No, and I see the quality. I've only used them a couple of times, but the quality is just superb using them. I don't think that they degrade the picture that much, and certainly not that you'd see unless you were zooming right in and was very particular about things.
I've never used an extension tube, but there's no optics in an extension tube as far as I understand. It's just a hollow tube, I think. Is it?
Yeah, we was using them this week actually, or Oliver was using them. They do stop the light, so you have to up the ISO, and they basically up the magnification of the picture. Basically, I think if you use extension tubes, like I say, we used them on a kit lens just to prove the fact that you can get macro shots with a kit lens using extension tubes.
Just to go back to Jennifer's, sorry, Mark, cut across you. Jennifer's question about the converters. I think the converter with more magnification will lose you more stops. So, for example, the 1/2 might lose you 1 stop of light, whereas the 1/4 may lose you 2 stops.
Yeah.
As I said, I don't know about Lumix system, but that's how the Canon system works.
Yeah. The G9's becoming really popular, There's lots of people buying them cameras these days, I'll tell you. Now, guys, let me just say something to you all. Do that. Right? I can't ask you enough. Right? You're just there. You're sitting there. I know you're there. I can see how many people are online. And there's lots of people that have pressed the like button already. Just press that like button. Subscribe to the YouTube channel or the Facebook page wherever you're watching this from. And it's been absolutely fantastic. Let's say thank you to Tony here. That's who he is. Look, at tony.james.1314 over on Instagram. Go and check him out.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, it's been wonderful, Tony. Thank you very much for joining us. And it was a bit last minute, just for anyone who's. I literally only contacted Tony this morning because I was up in Leeds, and and last night before I went to bed, I thought, tomorrow I'm doing live Q&A and with a guest. And I thought, I got a guest. I've not had a chance to contact anyone. So thanks for doing it last minute, Tony. I really appreciate that. And just stay there. I'm going to talk to you in a minute. But for now, let's give everyone a nice wave. And thanks for joining us. Members, love you all right? You're the reason why I'm here. And thank you for joining us on this live Q&A. I will see you next month. Goodbye, guys.